8 Indian Navy veterans who had their death sentence commuted to prison term in Qatar have been released. The government says that 7 of them are already back in the country after an 18-month jail stay in the Middle East country. The government of India welcomes the release of the 8 Indian nationals working for the Dhara Global Company who were detained in Qatar. 7 out of the 8 have returned back home to India. We appreciate the decision by the Amir of the state of Qatar to enable the release and the homecoming of these nationals is what the Foreign Ministry had to say. We are very happy that we are back in India safely. Definitely, we would like to thank the Prime Minister, as this was the only possible because of his personal intervention, is what is being said by the veterans who've come back home.
वापस इंडिया पहुंच गए हम सेफ एंड साउंड और डेफिनेटली ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर श्री मोदी को धन्यवाद करना चाहेंगे कि उनके पर्सनल इंटरवेंशन से ये पॉसिबल हुआ और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ कतार के हिज एक्सेलेंसी द अमीर को कि उन्होंने ये होने दिया एंड बस यही बोलना चाहेंगे. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
So, this is very good news coming in, and there you can see we just heard one of the veterans talking about this is the Navy veteran who has been released from Qatar. Of course, very, very good news. They're back home. This is 8 Indian Navy veterans jailed in Qatar over alleged spying charges have been released. The government has, in fact, made that statement. 7 of them are back home. This is after an 18-month jail stay in the Middle East country. The government there, has definitely the veterans there thanking the Prime Minister, saying that it's because of his intervention that this was possible. Do remember, sentence was commuted and they were meant to serve a jail term as far as this case is concerned. Of course, something that the Indian government has in fact been trying to get these 8 veterans. There was a major diplomatic triumph when it comes to India. These 8 veterans of the Indian Navy who were sentenced to death in Qatar were released by Doha. In fact, that capital punishment was commuted to an extended prison term earlier following that diplomatic intervention by the government. Now, amid desperate pleas by anxious family of the veterans to secure their release and safe passage back to the homeland, the ministry has now finally managed to get 7 of the jailed Navy veterans back here at home here in India. We have my colleague Vishnu joining us to get more details. Vishnu, 8 of the 7 are said to be back home in India. What about the 8th Army veteran?
Said to be back home. And the statement of the government of India actually says that all 8 have been released. I'm just going to read out that statement of the government of India. It says, the government of India welcomes the release of 8 Indian nationals working for the Dhara Global Company who were detained in Qatar. So this essentially means that all of them have been released. 7 of the 8 are back home. I do know that one of the families had a link abroad. They had family abroad. So I just need to understand whether that family has, that member, that officer has actually gone back, I believe, to the United States, or they've come back here. That's something that at this juncture we do not know. But this is extremely welcome news. It comes at a time when there was a great deal of understandable anxiety on the part of the families, because it's been more than a year since these 7 officers and 1 sailor were detained in Qatar on allegations of spying. That finally has been overturned. The death sentence which they received has been commuted. It had been commuted and they are now back in the country. The involvement of the Amir of Qatar has been indicated in the statement of the government of India, which says that these men who were working for the Dhara Global Company, 7 of the 8 have returned to India. We appreciate the decision by the Amir of the state of Qatar to enable the release and homecoming of these nationals. So there was a process which was taking place. They had been sentenced to jail. There was a constant process of appealing that. And finally, there is welcome news now for these families who've been waiting for so long. There are no further details on this. It's difficult to know what exactly happened, the circumstances in which they were arrested, because all the allegations of spying have been denied altogether. These were men working for this company which was involved in training of the Qatar Navy. It was, they were carrying on with their duties. Something took place, the details of which have never been really disclosed. But the good news now is that they're finally back in India. It's been more than a year since they were picked up, put in initially into solitary confinement. The process of getting consular access took time. Finally, that did take place. There was a huge surprise when they were actually sentenced to death. There was a process of appeal. The Prime Minister met the Emir of Qatar on the sidelines of the COP28 meeting, the environment meeting in Dubai. Subsequent to that, they returned to jail, but now there has been this very welcome release. 7 of the, all 8, as I understand it, have been released. 7 of the 8 are back in India.
वापस इंडिया पहुंच गए हम सेफ एंड साउंड और डेफिनेटली ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर श्री मोदी को धन्यवाद करना चाहेंगे कि उनके पर्सनल इंटरवेंशन से ये पॉसिबल हुआ और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ कतार के हिज एक्सेलेंसी द अमीर को कि उन्होंने ये होने दिया एंड बस यही बोलना चाहेंगे. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Without the intervention of Prime Minister Modi, it wouldn't be. आज हम आपके सामने खड़े नहीं हो रहे होते.
वेरी थैंकफुल टू द गवर्नमेंट एंड प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी कि हम लोग बाहर आ सके और वापस अपने कंट्री में आ सके. थैंक यू सो मच.
प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी और उनका पर्सनल इंटरवेंशन, उनका इंटरेक्शन, और एक और मौका लेना चाहता हूं कि थैंक करूंगा एमीर को कतर के, जिनके उनके इंटरेक्शन के कारण आज हम यहाँ खड़े हैं.
It's only possible due to the intervention of our Prime Minister and his personal interaction and involvement with the Emir of Qatar.
We have waited almost 18 months to be back in India. We are extremely grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji. It certainly wouldn't have been possible without his personal intervention and that equation with the Emir of Qatar.
We have Vishnu joining us. Vishnu, take us through the details. Did these officers know that they will be released as early as they did? I mean, it's been a long ordeal for them. They've been there for 18 months and, of course, their sentence was commuted. Did they have any inkling that they would be released at the time they were?
No, they had no inkling whatsoever. And, it came entirely as a surprise for them. There's very little information that we can actually share beyond what's been reported so far. Just 2 pieces of information. Number 1, they didn't know that they were being released until such time as they were told to get their things all packed. And then shortly after that, and this was at about 9 to 9:30 a.m. yesterday, Qatar time, that they were whisked away in a car and taken to the embassy. They subsequently, several hours later, ordered an Indigo flight. And they came back to India shortly after 2 a.m. IST this morning. I can also tell you that the 8th member, all 8 have been released now. The 8th member is absolutely safe. There are certain there is an amount of paperwork which is being sorted out in his case, and that there is an expectation that he will subsequently return to India as well. So he is safe. The bottom line is that the death sentence has been commuted earlier on, and they were, of course, still in jail. There was a process of appeal, and now they've been released. So the news now is of their release. All of them back in India, thanking the government. Remember, Prime Minister Modi met the Emir of Qatar on the sidelines of the COP meeting, the climate change meeting in Dubai a couple of months back. India is the strategic partner of Qatar. Very, very close strategic relations between both sides. And I think it's on the basis of all of that there has been this very significant move by the Emir of Qatar himself to be involved in this, a move which has resulted in a pardon and the release of these men who are now back in India.